I think the biggest thing when people see us moving through a field at a relatively high rate of speed and then getting close to different obstacles and things like that, people are a little bit fearful of it or a little bit wary of it or unsure of it. With us, and it's the same way, when we break in, it's a little bit different and we're a little cautious about how we do things, and then as you get more comfortable and you understand the limitations of what you can and what you can't do, there's certain things that we do that are inherent to the job in order to do a good job.
All right, I'm honored to have Mr. Karl Holcomb here today.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you again.
It is great to talk to an aviation entrepreneur. So, well known in the aviation community here, but also it's a little bit different how you do things. You're not flying for the airlines. You're not flying for the military. How is it different being an entrepreneur and a professional in the aviation business, but having your own business doing it?
You know, that's a funny word, entrepreneur. It sounds so big and so official and so big thing, you know, all of that. And for me, and from the entrepreneurial side of it, and the fact that, you know, Dad started this business back in 1972, and I just kind of inherited it, family business. You know, we've been here now over 50 plus years. So it's one of the few things, ag aviation is still one of the few things that you get to make money, you get to stay home at night most of the time. And it's still one of the segments in aviation, you're getting paid to do it, and it's probably still one of the freest forms of flying, of aviation.
Yes, sir.
You know, so all of those things were niches that were all things that qualities that I liked about what this was. I went to state my dad really wanted me to be an engineer.
Yes, sir.
Started off in aerospace, changed over to industrial engineering, like 36 hours getting my degree. But, you know, just as the way the world worked, and Dad was able to get another half of a flying service over in the South Delta, moved us into another position over there, picked up some work, offered me an opportunity to fly, and you know, I really couldn't see myself doing anything else other than that. I've been around it, grown up aviation all around my life ever since I was, basically. So, and flying has always been an itch for me. It just one of those things that worked out really good. From an ag aviation standpoint, like I said, I've been around it all my life. I love the flying part of it, but I love the people part of it. We farmed all while I was a kid growing up. Pretty much well through 98 was the last year that Dad had a crop in the ground. So I grew up on a farm as well and doing this, and it was just such a good blend of two things that I really enjoyed doing. And the biggest thing is I enjoy the people. I love the people that I get to work for and get to fly for. They're good people, and you know, it's one of those things. Farming, and since we're a support industry for farming. You know, a lot of what we do is it all depends on how well they do and what's going on at the time. So right now, farm economy is pretty tough. Makes it pretty tough on our industry as well. That's a shared thing. But just to be able to help the people, still be part of farming, still be part of the ag industry.
Yes, sir.
That's just been one of the big things and a positive thing about being here.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm sure it's very different having those relationships for your business versus having like a supervisor saying, I need you to fly this route.
Correct.
Go. So you're managing relationships with farmers.
Sure.
One of the big topics for this class is technology and kind of innovation and stuff. So how have you seen you were born into this industry, and I'm sure the planes have changed, the technology has changed. How has it changed since you started, and how is it still changing?
So when I started in 1992 was my first paid year that I just got my commercial and my first paid year flying. So even at the time, actually you can go to the Ag Aviation Museum, is in Jackson, Mississippi. It's part of the Ag and Forestry Museum down there. You'll actually see some of the very first dedicated built ag planes that basically came out in the 50s. So prior to that, you know, and you'll see an example there of they were using World War II technology. They were using 1930s technology aircraft and just adapting them over, changing them over, doing whatever modifications they needed to do to fit the niche. You know, whether it was hauling dry material, hauling liquid material, whatever it was. So you had things that were basically hand-built, made. Then as the industry grew, got to be more, as business does, there was a niche and a need. So people started making businesses. Dusters and Sprayers was a supply company there. It was started in the 50s.
Yes,
been going on, still in business now out in Oklahoma. But making and supplying parts. But you didn't really see it until late 50s, early 60s, and then even in the 70s, you started seeing technology change in the aircraft itself. We started getting purpose-built airplanes. So safety was a big factor then. Safety, performance, all those things started getting better and better because we're now purpose-built stuff. So when I came along, the aircraft were somewhat pretty much well done. There hadn't been a lot of changes in aircraft since I've been going, as far as new models, things like that. They've gotten bigger, turbine powered. That has been one of the technologies that we've incorporated in ag aircraft because of the safety, the reliability of turbine technology, turbine engines I'm talking about. So that's been a change. The biggest change probably that hit our industry, when you take those out, the biggest thing probably now in the last 30 years is the incorporation of GPS technology. Just like precision farming in precision ag, so now we can say that we're part of the precision ag side of things, because the GPS technology took away paper flaggers, it took away human flaggers, so we know we have sub-meter accuracy now inside of the aircraft. We know multiple times a second exactly where we are, multiple times a second. That's how fast that GPS card is updating in the computer. And so when they first came out, it was giving us basic flagging information. So if I could set in a swath, let's say 60 feet, and I could click a line, start me a line that's infinite around the world, and I could click a button again and it would move me another line over 60 feet. Or it would set up a couple of different patterns that we could have preloaded, say, so to speak, and we could work. And what that did is increased our efficiency, because now every pass we know exactly where it is. We can run it out to the optimal width to where we're as efficient and is still getting the great coverage that we can give, every pass. And so that made us more efficient. It also, what we didn't realize is how sharp it was going to help you be at the end of the day. So prior to GPS technology, we'd go out into a field and we've got a mark. We had what they call a paper flagger during my tenure time. So like every few passes, we'd click a button and it would click a little cardboard square with about a 10-foot, 12-foot tissue streamer on it that was white or white and orange. And that would give you just a point. You could lay two of them in a field, and then you'd have a point to draw a line. You'd have 2 points to draw a line through. And then you'd work a couple of passes over, and then you'd drop another couple. Or if you were working next to a road and had a power line, you could count power poles and say, okay, it's 4 passes between the poles. But that took a high level of concentration every second of the day, while you're flying. And you didn't realize mentally how wearing that was on you at the end of the day until we got GPS technology. And then we figured out that, later in the day, we were still pretty sharp mentally. We weren't nearly as fatigued. So safety factor, all of those things, we benefited by that technology. Now, even so and even more, we're seeing, just like in precision ag with the tractors and the sprayers that they have, we can do variable rate technology. So what a farmer will go out and do is he'll do soil samples or he'll do tissue samples. They can actually do infrared photography, different spectrum photography, analyze the plant and say, you know what, this area here needs this nutrient, let's say, or this crop protection product. This one right next to it does not so much, this one not so much, that one a whole bunch. Well, they'll go out there and grid this field out, and then they'll send it into the computer, and they have people in to make what we call it a prescription. And they'll actually take those grids and say, okay, this needs this, this needs this, this needs this, and they'll form a prescription, and we'll upload that on the GPS using shapefile technology. And so we'll just go out there and fly that, liquid or dry, and it will vary the rate accordingly. So we're only putting out exactly what, let's say, this little particular area needs. So it's saving the farmer in whatever cost of material is that we're putting out. If it's a dry, fertilizer, obviously, we're utilizing specifically what each area needs and nothing more. So there's no waste. And so it cuts back on the expense of whatever it is that we're putting out. Helps us out because now you know exactly where all this stuff's going to go. And we work inside of shapefiles. If you're going to a different area, a strange area, if I'm going to go help a neighbor and I got shapefiles, I don't have to worry about looking at a map and trying to figure out where I'm at, where I got to go. It's all right here in the computer. So GPS technology has really been one of the one of the big things that has helped us out over the last 30 years, you know.
Yes, sir.
So it's in all kind of ways. Like I said, it makes us more efficient. It makes us sharper at the end of the day, which makes us safer at the end of the day. So it's really been one of the things we're seeing. Like I said, with the variable rate technology, we're seeing some automatic gate stuff, automatic on and off on the spray stuff. There's even a boom out now that every individual nozzle you can program tied into the GPS, and it can vary the rate in each individual nozzle. So across that swath, you can change, across that pattern, you can change what you're putting out on the go. You know, it's crazy the stuff that's coming out. Like technology does, you know, it's always something. Most times, always something's kind of helping you out. It has its own teething pains, and it brings on some of its own issues. But for the most part, you know, especially like I said in the GPS technology, that's probably been really the biggest thing that's happened to our industry in the last 30 years.
Wow. Wow. Very good information. It's very interesting to see how the industry has evolved since the beginning when we had biplanes, and you know, there's a lot of veterans coming back from World War II kind of pioneered this industry. Kind of closing with, I know this is a family business of yours, and y'all have been in business for decades now. So what would you just say out of, you know, it can be as simple or complex as possible, what would you say are the 3 traits to being a good entrepreneur?
You know, I'll tell you a little difference between my dad and myself. And from an entrepreneur standpoint, strictly entrepreneur standpoint, I think you got to be willing to take a little risk. I just think that's just the way it is. You know, you take Elon Musk. I mean, last week we just had our first trillionaire in the world. Mm-hmm. Our first trillionaire just made it. How'd he make it? You know, you read Elon's story. Elon's story is pretty impressive in the fact that, you know, I mean, he dang near went dead broke and then wound up being the world's trillionaire. Mm-hmm. I've got a really good friend of mine in Texas, another great story. Started off in the world out of college as a fractional ownership pilot. He was working for Beach at the time in their fractional ownership program. Started making dog food. Took his mom and dad's feed store, a mom and pop operation. He was late. He was a late baby. His dad was in the Navy in World War II. They took their GI money and he started a little feed store in Mount Pleasant, Texas. And he had the idea, said, you know what, I think I can make a dog food. Came up with he started working on his own recipes, blending his own dog food, got to peddling it around, and turned around in 2000, oh my goodness, I forget now, it's 2015, 2020, somewhere in there, sold it and just made a killing.
Wow.
And 3 years ago, he was sitting on the couch, he said, you know what, and he had signed a no-compete when he sold it, 5-year no-compete. So he said, you know what, my no-compete's gonna run out. I can't just sit on the couch and not do nothing. I'm going to get back in the dog food business.
Wow.
So he built a $40 million state-of-the-art dog food business, dog food plant, started a whole nother brand, got it up and going, and recently sold it again.
Wow.
But I say that to say, he just took a risk. I mean, he just took a risk and did it. My dad was really, really good. My dad was late. He was 28 years old when he learned how to fly in 1968. Had 3 kids to feed at the time. Magnavox had a TV plant out here in Kearney Park. They had a cabinet plant when TVs used to be a piece of furniture. Yeah. You know, when I was a little bitty fellow, TVs were humongous. They weighed 7,000 pounds, but they were a piece of furniture and they were made in cabinet. So my dad worked in the pattern shop at Magnavox. Well, just 2 miles down the road, there was a guy that had a flying service. And my dad, ever since he was a kid, just really wanted to fly. And that sparked an interest. Talked to him. He said, you load for me, I'll teach you how to fly. So they worked out a deal. He learned, you know, 68. My mom still got footage of his first paying job. My mom went out there with a little 8mm camera.
Really?
I was a little bitty fellow. I mean, I had just been born.
Do you have that on YouTube or anything?
It's not on YouTube. My sister had it. She put it on a DVD she made for him for the 50th wedding anniversary. Anyway, you know, and so. But Daddy had been the first one to tell you. He said, then I got approached by a farmer and said, hey, I want to buy an airplane. I want you to fly my stuff. And Dad's like, well, no, but we'll go into business. He said, let's do that. And Daddy would be the first to tell you. He said, I was the only one in the whole household thought that was a good idea. you know.
Yeah.
So
Everybody.
risk, you know,
Yeah.
is you're going to take the risk. Me, I'm a little bit, I won't say optimistic or pessimistic or whatever it is. That's probably the one trait that I don't have as good as my dad did, in the sense of I'm a little more conservative in how I try to run things. My changes have been the way as the business has gone. You know, we went from running 4 or 5 airplanes now down to one great big turbine.
Yeah.
So I acquired another half of an operation from a friend of mine, a neighbor that was getting out at the time. And I ran it with the airplane I had was a 500-gallon airplane, and I ran it for 2 years. And the second year I ran it, I had sat in the seat for 1,120 hours. And I said, that's just, I can't sit that. That's just crazy for me to run that much time.
Hours.
So at that time, it's like, all right, so I've got one of two choices. I'm either going to have to buy another airplane, hire another pilot, think for 2 people, or I'm going to go find the biggest thing that I can get the bank to talk into loaning me money to get, and I'm just going to draw a circle around what I think I can work with that one airplane. And that's what I did. You know, so for me, that was the decision I had to do. Am I going to sign $1 million note, or am I going to try to go just get another airplane of what I got and try to work with 2 people and do it that way? So, you know, you're always going to have some things. There's going to be issues that's going to come up. And so you're just going to, I think from an entrepreneur standpoint, that's always been the thing. They always are always looking for that next thing, but they're always willing to take a risk.
And your plane is the Air Tractor,
Air Tractor 802 is
the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that allows you to be more efficient.
Yeah. So at one time I was covering a circle where I was going as far over to the Scott County line, all the way over the Mississippi River, and then as far north as, say, just Yazoo City and a little bit around through Holly Bluff and all the way over to Rolling Fork. And I still cover a little bit of that same circle. But, you know, obviously I'm not the only guy in that circle. I've got neighbors, you know, that have customers inside of that same circle. But to cover what I need to cover, I've had years where I've covered as many as 250,000 acres, you know, over the course of the season. I've had years where obviously I've only done 75 or 80,000 acres. But I could do it all with the one airplane, you know, with a little bit of leeway here and there. So that was the thing for me, is just figuring out kind of how you gonna handle this.
Yes, sir.
But there's always going to be, because my dad told me 2 things when I started this and before he kind of just turned everything loose. He said, number 1, the only constant around here is change, and number 2, they ain't never no 2 the same. Never no 2 years the same.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, it's those kind of things. You know, laughingly, I'd have told him, I said, well, yeah, there is one constant. You know, the constant obviously is the Lord.
Yes, sir.
And in the ag world, you got to have faith. And so I would tell you from an entrepreneur standpoint, and I think that's how you mitigate the risk, is having faith.
Yes, sir.
You know, you pray and you say, Lord, I need a little help. I need a little insight. I need a little direction. And He'll grant you that, and He'll give you that. And I think He's going to give you, and if you can hear and you'll listen, He'll point you in the direction, and you'll know, you know, this is what I need to go do. And it's okay, because He's got me on the other side.
It's good. Very, very good advice. So I appreciate you being generous with your time.
Sure.
That's great insight. So it's very interesting when, you know, the aviation world is very diverse, and, you know, there's some people that are actually entrepreneurs in this world. So I appreciate you coming on here and talking to us. And,
Sure. Enjoy.
Catch up soon.
So the 802.
Yep.
And do you have the variable sprayers on here?
No, I do not. That is a technology it's still kind of pretty early in it. What I do have is, so that's a valve. I can actually, on the go, I can cut this part of the boom off, shorten the boom down. What that does is, part of the material when it comes out, the way the vortice works, you know, when the air rolls out from under the wing, it's drawing some of that material up in the vortice. So we'll shorten the boom down, and we can decrease the amount of material that goes up into that vortice.
Okay.
So actually decreasing the drift potential. If there's someplace close and something sensitive I want to work around, I can shorten that boom down, and then, you know, that's I'm just decreasing my chance to have, you know, some drift.
And you do loading right here?
That's correct.
Some loading right there. 1,300 horsepower?
Yeah, 1,350, yeah.
Wow. Is it gonna be too much if I just step on that step right there?
Oh, you can climb up that step.
Yes,
open
sir.
The door up and just lay it over.
Let's see. I'm gonna be very careful.
Oh, you're good. You can step anywhere on the back. You want to step. Ain't gonna hurt you.
Let's see. Wow.
And you see the handle right there. It says by the open sign. Just click it. Just roll it over. Right, up. Go straight up. There you go. It's kind of hard. You see where? Turn it the other way. There you go.
Wow. Yes, sir. This
Just
is.
leave it open. That's fine.
That is cool.
So the screen in the middle of the dash is that's the computer. That's the GPS computer.
Yes, sir.
It's touch screen. Everything I can do, I can select right there pretty much well touch screen. The one on the right there in front of you is just a 796, a Garmin that I use for ADS-BN.
Yes, sir. Wow. That is cool. A little bit more levers than a 172.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like sitting in an F-16 cockpit.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but you know, it's like everything else. You just pay attention to what it is you know you got to pay attention to.
Yes, sir. I bet it's got a lot of power taking off, especially if you're empty. Man.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Close this right here.